Takes Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Beat the back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz taking you into the start of the week here on the Believe Network. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet on the NBA playoffs. Things heating up throughout the second round, especially after the late night upset by the Minnesota Timberwolves. My T-Wolves, baby, rooting for them to get to the finals and find a way to pull off the magic of an NBA major upset run to a title. Anthony Edwards returns, and they edge out a 12-block performance from Victor Wembanyama to win 104-102. Could have bet them as big underdogs last night, and you would have cashed big time, as the T-Wolves still sitting at 30-1 to win the NBA title on FanDuel Sportsbook, and Oklahoma City just keeps creeping up higher and higher and higher on the odds board. Minus 170 favorites now to win the NBA title at FanDuel Sportsbook, followed by the San Antonio Spurs at plus 470, the Knicks at 9-1, and Detroit, the Pistons at 18-1. They kick off or tip off their series against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round of the NBA playoffs tonight. All right, right around, I think, 7 p.m. Eastern is when that game gets rolling, followed by the Thunder versus the Lakers. Big favorites are the Thunder in their series against 41-year-old LeBron James and the rest of the Lake Show. Head to FanDuel Sportsbook to bet on the NBA title and take advantage of their boosts throughout the playoffs. They have a happy hour every single day at 5 p.m. Eastern. You get a straight 30% profit boost for really just about any wager that you can find on the board. And then they also have a same game parlay 25% boost available to users throughout each day of the NBA playoffs. Getting to a fun show this week to start things off. No major news to talk about over the last few days, but we're going to take a look at the transfer class rankings for Cincinnati on 247sports.com, see where UC sits on the Bart Torvik analytic metrics before diving into what is a tough football schedule that we haven't really talked about much upcoming for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team in the fall of 2026. All that ahead on FanDuel Sportsbook presented by all that ahead on Bearcat Blitz presented by FanDuel Sportsbook here on the Believe Network. Bringing in Neil Meyer now from the frontofficenews.com. Neil, we have transfer rankings for the Cincinnati Bearcats on 247sports.com. Really solid start for Cincinnati in the transfer portal when we are thinking about where they sit among all of these teams across the nation. They're spending big money. They put together a deep roster and currently sit at 19th nationally in terms of total transfer commitments among all 256 different teams out there, something like that, in the sport of college basketball at the Division I level. 19th overall, 10 commitments so far. 7 of those are 4 stars, 3 stars. No, I would say major eye-popping, high-level, gonna change the national title race type talents joining Cincinnati so far, but solid work by Jared Calhoun. And in year one, with no real foundation to go with, dating back to any time coaching the Bearcats, this is, I think, a solid start for Cincinnati, and to be top 20 and most everywhere you look is right around where you want to start if you're Jared Calhoun.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to take away too, Russ, when you look at these rankings, yes, Cincinnati is coming in currently 19th in the transfer portal rankings per 247 Sports, but the biggest takeaway right now is when you look down now, pending the scenario here, before I say this, Cincinnati has landed the most 4 stars in this recruiting cycle with 7. But yes, that's coming from a new coaching staff, a complete roster overhaul where they had nobody from a season ago. essentially slated to return after the last few departures. So they've really done a great job in attacking the portal. If you want my honest opinion, to be sitting right there at 19th in the latest rankings, I mean, that's a pretty good start for Jared Calhoun. And you only have about, when you look down, you see you have 10 guys on the roster right now. That's a pretty good start right now, right? With teams behind you currently as Alabama, Gonzaga, Houston, UCLA, some of those big name powerhouse schools currently sitting behind teams in the transfer portal rankings. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way when the season comes. But Russ, for me, I think right now, the Jared Calhoun and this staff, highlighted by Corey Evans, has done a great job at putting a legitimate Big 12 roster together right now, despite it still being a little bit early in this process. And they still have some pieces that they can pick and choose from. But to be sitting 19th overall at the beginning of May after firing your former head coach in Wes Miller, you get a whole new coaching staff to be right there where they're at. It's pretty impressive.
I'm in agreement. I think it's set up, Neil. I mean, especially when looking like a win, more like it. This team is, or when the NCAA powers that be enact the 76 team tournament, it's just going to be very difficult to keep the Bearcats out of this field. I saw some projections that said last year's team would have been maybe the last team left out of a 76 team field. I honestly think they probably would have gotten in when it came to push to shove with the committee if it was that scenario. And so when you think about that, it would take, I would say, this coming season, injuries for the entirety of the campaign to guys like Tyler Tejada, Tylen Riley, and Miles Colvin. It would take injuries of that magnitude to three top players for them to not end up putting up a good enough record overall to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and it's still too early to be kind of thinking about what this roster might be. I mean, you got your pieces, you kind of got it pen to paper, but it's a little too early to be talking about injuries, Russ. Hopefully we avoid those this
Right, but you know what I'm
because,
talking about. Like
yeah,
that's the
correct.
only scenario where we could see this team not making a 76 team field as injuries.
Yeah. And that's still if that goes into effect this year, which sounds like trending in that direction. But Russ, I don't think a 2025, 2026 team, like you mentioned, would have gotten held out of the NCAA tournament last year if that was the format. So overall, with what they're doing right now, pen to paper, with the 76 team tournament, especially being in the Big 12, with every game being essentially a quad one matchup, right? When you look down, night in and night out in the Big 12, Cincinnati is going to have plenty and ample opportunities to make an NCAA resume, especially with the non-conference schedule that they have upcoming this year as well. So right now for me, Russ, I'm right there in agreement with you. I think it's going to be hard to keep Cincinnati out of an NCAA tournament right now with this roster if that were to go to the 76 team expansion.
Looking at some more numbers here from evanmaya.com and Bart Torvik. Looking at their incoming transfer class rank on Evan Maya, right around where they are at 24/7 Sports, 22nd overall on the incoming transfers class rank. He actually has Travion Carson, the North Dakota State transfer, as their best overall player that they've added so far. I think you could make a case for that. We'll see if Carson ends up being one of the five starters in what's a pretty versatile lineup for Cincinnati that they have right now, even with five spots still available. And I mean, you look at the rest of this top 20, I mean, Big 12 teams like Kansas, you got Baylor in there. You got Arizona State, who's done a very good job in the transfer portal so far. Same with Oklahoma State. Also, Iowa State mixed in there. And there's a lot of good teams. Texas Tech, Utah. I mean, the bottom of the conference, Neil, seemingly has woken up. And that's like, that pays credence to what you're saying there of there may not be any quad three games at all in the conference slate like we're used to seeing with a Utah or an Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and when you look down at the Big 12, Russ, too, obviously there's still a lot of changes to be made. Obviously, some teams were behind the get-go in terms of NIL and whatnot, but the Big 12, essentially, Russ, when you look down, it is legitimately the best conference in America. And when you look down, quad one opportunities night in and night out is essentially going to be incredible for Cincinnati if they're able to come together in year four now in the Big 12, first under Jared Calhoun in the Big 12. If they are able to not only reassemble a roster, right, that they've just put together under Jared Calhoun, but then go in there and compete right away for a Big 12 championship and compete in the Big 12. Russ, if Cincinnati finishes in the top 6 of the Big 12 this year with everything they're going through, a first-year head coach, a complete roster overhaul, it's safe to say that it's going to be legitimately impossible to keep them out of the NCAA tournament. And obviously still early to talk about that, but that is what you want right now. And ample opportunities, Big 12, Quad 1. It's going to be exciting this fall at Fifth Third Arena.
22nd on the transfer portal rankings from Evan Maya, 19th on 24/7 Sports. Looking at the entire team in general, which is all made up of transfers so far, but looking at Bart Torvik's overall national rankings, 2027 projections came out over the weekend, and Cincinnati, Neil, is basically right where I would have slotted them, probably just on the overall eye test. 31st overall in the entire country, and they're right, I believe, in the middle of the pack of the Big 12, projected to have the 40th best 40th best offense and 26th best adjusted defense on Bart Torvik. This all pretty much checks out to me, Neil, and I mean, it just goes to show, like, UC is firmly in the mix for NCAA tournament contending teams, and this has been a strong roster, and it's gone to show the investment in this roster is seemingly paying off in the underlying metrics. I mean, 31st seems right on to me. I think that's, what do you think about that rank?
I like that ranking because, Russ, when you look down right now and you see Cincinnati at 31, it shows when you look at all these rankings, right, between Bart Torvik, Evan Mia, when you put it together, and for them to be in the position to where these guys have them ranked 31st right now in the country, that says a lot about the job that Corey Evans is doing and what he's doing at Cincinnati and putting together legitimate Big 12 bona fide rosters. And that's what he did last year. Like, we heard it all last season that Cincinnati had a legitimate Big 12 roster assembled, and then the injuries happened. They're doing the exact same this year, where pen to paper, it looks like they have a legitimate roster where they can feel comfortable and compete in the Big 12. But I'm excited. And if Evan Mia and a couple others have them ranked that high, that shows that a lot of people on the outside are looking in and saying, hey, Cincinnati is doing a very good job so far with Jared Calhoun.
And them and Memphis are the projected 2 highest teams in the country right now in terms of expected transfer impact. That just goes to show how many transfers they brought in and the quality of the transfers that they have right now. I think it's a solid ranking, and it's going to probably, I would say, sit firmly right around there. We'll see if Cincinnati can crack into the top 25 of the AP poll early and often throughout Jared Calhoun's first season. But overall, I mean, with the transfer portal kind of winding down, news few and far between these days, so far, a great job by Jared Calhoun and his staff alongside Corey Evans to put this roster together. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from them about this roster, I would expect sometime before the end of this month, if not the beginning of June, as they start to really dive into off-season workouts and get these guys on as close to the same page as possible before regular practices start this fall. Getting to the Bearcats football schedule coming up in just a few moments. And speaking of football, you can bet on the Big 12 title through FanDuel Sportsbook. Cincinnati, a long shot due to the difficulty of this schedule, and nobody at minus money anymore after the betting news surrounding Brendan Sorsby. Plus 105 odds for the Texas Tech Red Raiders at the top of the odds board for FanDuel on FanDuel Sportsbook. And then Cincinnati all the way down now at 80-1. They have flipped back to 80-1 odds, actually 65-1. That actually just changed right as I was talking. And Cincinnati went from 80 to 65-1 for some reason. And they are firmly at the 3rd lowest odds to win the conference in front of Iowa State and Colorado. We'll get to that schedule and what it looks like for Cincinnati coming up after these messages on Bearcat Blitz, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, right here on the Believe Network. Neil, an upcoming gauntlet for Cincinnati Bearcats football as we assess this schedule. Really, for the first time, we haven't done a really major deep dive into the 12-game slate for Cincinnati coming up, starting on September 5th at home against Boston College, spending the entire month of September in Cincinnati, of course, playing one of those games at Paul Brown, now Paycor Stadium, downtown, where the Bengals play in their final scheduled matchup ever in the battle for the Victory Bell against Miami of Ohio. Neil, tough slate ahead for Cincinnati. They do face three of the worst projected teams in the entire conference in West Virginia, Iowa State, and Colorado, but they also have plenty of matchups against teams projected to be at the top. When you look at the top 8 teams projected on FanDuel Sportsbook's odd boards right now, they face Arizona. They also face Houston, Utah, BYU, and Texas Tech. So 5 of the top 8 teams projected to have a chance to win this conference on FanDuel Sportsbook's odds on Cincinnati's schedule coming up. And that to me just shows you have to get 3 wins on the board against those lowly teams projected to be at the bottom of the conference with you if you don't want to be at the bottom of the conference this coming fall.
Yeah, and that's a very good turning point too, Russ, because not only that, you have to dominate your non-conference game, but you're going to have to do so with a lot of critics talking right now, right? Cincinnati is going to have to find ways to silence the outside noise this upcoming season, especially with all the news surrounding Brendan Sorsby and whatever might come out of that situation, because obviously it's still a whirlwind. There's still a lot of things that might come out there in that aspect, following those conversations with Sorsby. Obviously, the investigation, how does that affect Cincinnati? Because right now, let's be honest, Russ, we still haven't heard a comment from the University of Cincinnati yet. They're still waiting for this thing to kind of play out, but who knows what to really expect there. Could Cincinnati come out and say, hey, we had no comment on this. We had no acknowledgement of this situation. They avoid any penalties, any sanctions from the NCAA, or whatever comes out of this investigation, does it linger into the season and Cincinnati has to play against the outside factors along with a very tough schedule. So this upcoming season, like you said, you're going to have to dominate the non-conference schedule, right? You're going to have to find a way to get 3 wins right there in your non-con. Because then you mentioned the Big 12 schedule. When you look down, Russ, Western Carolina should be an easy beatable game. Boston College, I believe, as well. And Miami is beatable as well. So those should be 3 games where you should win right away. But it doesn't get easy playing at Arizona this year. It doesn't get easy playing Texas Tech. Utah was a very good team last year. Houston started to turn some momentum at the end of the year. Colorado's going to have some momentum potentially. BYU is going to be a top team again. So Cincinnati has a lot to overcome this season. Like, they have arguably one of the hardest schedules in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, and I got to correct myself a little bit, Neil. They face 6 of the top 8 odds teams on the FanDuel Sportsbook board. Forgot to mention Kansas State mixed in there as well.
Yeah, so they're going to have an uphill battle because who knows what to really expect from any of these teams right now in the Big 12. Obviously, as of 13 days ago, Texas Tech was your clear favorite. And then the Brendan Sorsby news comes out, and now it's, okay, Texas Tech is still your favorite, but there's a lot of question marks surrounding that. So the Big 12 right now, Russ, it's not set in stone for who might be able to go down and win this conference. I know here you go in about 2 months, you make your way down to Frisco, Texas for Big 12 Media Days, where you do your voting, your preseason rankings, the media poll, if they elect to do that this year. I know they didn't do it last year in the past, but if they elect to go back to that, you're going to see where some of these rankings come in and out, and it's going to be interesting to see where a lot of people put Cincinnati.
Yeah, to me, Neil, to add wins like they have 2+ wins, I don't think people should expect to win 9 games this season. But to get to 8-4 overall and keep building on the momentum that's happened over the past couple of years, you cannot lose a game in September, in my opinion. And you're going to have to go,
especially when all those games are at home, essentially.
Right, exactly. And there's only one tough contest on the board there in the conference, and that's Kansas State. Boston College, I'm not quite sure where they're projected. I can pull it up on the ACC odds list coming up here in just a moment. Yeah, Boston College kind of look to be a bottom they're looked to be the bottom of the ACC. You cannot lose that game to Boston College. They're projected to have the worst team in the entire conference on FanDuel Sportsbook. They hold 300 to 1 odds to win the ACC. Next closest is Stanford at 250 to 1. So you have to win every game in September. A loss at home to start the season against this Boston College team would be a black eye. And then you got to find a way to win a game in November, all on the road except for Colorado. And you're looking at that game on November 21st as probably a must-win game, Neil, to feel like any momentum is moving forward from the season if the projections play out how we see. I mean, maybe Cincinnati is really, really great and everything comes together and they already have 6-7 wins going into November, and they just need to get one more to really add on to their resume from years past. But yeah, you cannot lose a game in September, in my opinion, and feel like things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, most certainly. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. And Russ, when I'm looking down at the schedule, there is one thing that just jumps off the page and that screams, I don't like it based off Cincinnati's schedule right now. And that is playing BYU your last game of the season.
Like last year.
just like the last few years. Me personally, obviously we cover the team and whatnot, but if you're an odds maker, you're one of these guys who are digging deep into it like us, look at how much success BYU has had the last 2 seasons, especially in the back half of the season.
With a returning freshman, now sophomore quarterback who could be the Big 12 player of the year this fall.
Mm-hmm. And with a coach in Keani Satike, who could arguably, Russ, now go out there and win Big 12 Coach of the Year. I mean, he's shown the potential. He's shown the progress that BYU has made in years past. So, I mean, it's very possible that Cincinnati comes in there in that last game of the season. Russ, I would not be surprised if that is a BYU team that's already clinched a spot in the Big 12 championship. I would not. We've seen it in years past. And when you look down, you do not want to be in a position right there, especially right there in that situation where if things do go DEFCON 5 and you're sitting at 5-6 at that point, you do not want to be 5-6 heading into that matchup, especially with the team that's arguably maybe already clinched their spot in the Big 12 championship. You do not want to face a surging BYU program, especially in November when they have all eyes on they look to make another college football playoff run.
Right. And it's not like they're going to take that game off. You can't take any games off as a Big 12 team because you have to pad your resume. You have to look as good as possible to make sure that if you don't win the Big 12 championship game, you give yourself as good a shot as possible to get in as an at-large team to that 12-team field. And to Neil's point, plus 550 odds, second best odds on the board for BYU right now to win the Big 12 just behind Texas Tech. It's a gauntlet, folks. It is a gauntlet. It's really tough facing 6 of the top 8 teams on the odds boards. And that just shows you cannot lose any games to West Virginia, Iowa State, or Colorado. Just cannot happen if fans are going to realistically expect this team to keep rising and keep growing and keep adding wins to the ledger like they have from a 3-win season to a 5-win season to a 7-win season. And to do that, you're likely going to have to win a game in November for the first time in 2 years. And it might end up being a team like they beat 3 years ago in November in Houston when you're looking at a Colorado squad that's currently 100 to 1, worst odds on the board to win the Big 12 and your only home matchup in November. That's a game probably is going to end up being a must win for Cincinnati to feel good about where they sit at the end of the 2026 season. Good little breakdown right there of the schedule that is going to be difficult. And that just is highlighted and stamped home by a cool little operation that Reddit CFB did on X over the weekend, where they nailed down, Neil, that Cincinnati has the hardest schedule by previous season opponent winning percentage in the entire country. Now, I would love to see a breakdown of this like what Warren Sharp does for the NFL, where he takes the projected betting win totals for each team and bases the schedule on that for the upcoming season. Because, I mean, like last year, Iowa State was way better than they're going to be this year. So that's, I think, wonking things out and making the schedule look a little bit more difficult than it really is. UC may not necessarily have the toughest schedule in the Big 12, but I would be surprised if somebody did that betting projected win totals operation and UC was not top 3, if not top 5 most difficult Big 12 schedules. And especially when you don't have your Big 12 player of the year caliber quarterback coming back in Brendan Sorsby and an unknown in JC French, although a very impressive spring from JC French, but still very unknown in terms of his ability to play at this level. We'll watch it all play out very, very soon, as fall camp is just a couple months away for the Cincinnati Bearcats football program. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. We will talk to you again later, right here across the Believe Network channels. We're presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have a great, great week, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play